want their help, but then when they give it to us, they don't do it the right way. And so we have to learn to be appreciative just that they're trying to help. They're never going to do it the way a woman does it, and that's okay. We're different. They don't have to be just like us.
Welcome to the Daniele Hage podcast. I'm your co-host, Daniele Hage. Yes, I'm the daughter-in-law to Daniele. Daniele is Nini to my 3 daughters, but she's a pastor, speaker, and founder of Dynamic Traits. She has 40 years experience in marriage and family relationships, and she's been married to Steve for 42 years, who travels the world preaching the gospel. Together, they pastor a church in Laguna Niguel, California. So welcome, so glad you're here today. Today, I need you to take notes, listen up, and do these 4 things if you want to ruin your relationship.
That's right. That's right. These are what we're going to talk about today is actually 4 ways of communicating with your spouse or your significant other, or really anybody you have a relationship with, that will actually chip away at the health of the relationship. So the first one is criticism.
Yeah.
And usually criticism starts with a complaint. You know, and we all have complaints. I mean, you live with anybody for a number of years. There's going to be things that irritate you and agitate you and annoy you.
My husband has no complaints.
Mine either. Although I probably have more about him, right? And I'm sure you do too. Because usually it's the women that are complaining. Sorry to say, but a complaint is like, hey, you said you were going to squeegee the shower. Didn't we agree that, last one out of the shower, squeegees the shower?
Right.
And that's normal, okay? Yeah. A criticism is, what are you, stupid? Why can't you remember to squeegee the salad? Are you lazy? What's the matter with you? Making them bad. Something's wrong with them. You need counseling, like you weren't raised right. That's a criticism. And that can be very hurtful. And all criticism does is it puts people on the defense. And ladies, for men, a constant criticism for a man coming from a woman to a man will cause him to distance himself. Mm-hmm. It doesn't cause him to want to be better or do better, because men are not motivated by failures. Yeah. They are motivated by wins. Yeah. So if you want to get the most out of your man, you need to acknowledge the things that he's doing right, the things he's doing well, be super appreciative of those things, and then he'll want to do even more of those things.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to us just a little bit more about that fine line between complaint and criticism, because I don't think you're saying like, don't bring up anything.
Right.
Like I recently had a complaint that turned into a criticism, and I noticed where I crossed that line of, hey, babe, can you fill up my car when it's empty? Can you fill up the truck with gas? Like, I really love when you fill up my car with gas. Because it seems like every time it's empty, I'm by myself, it's raining outside, it's cold. There's just something I hate filling up the car with gas.
I do too.
I didn't necessarily use the hero language that well. So my complaint turned into a criticism when I said, I wish you were more like your dad, how he always fills up the tank for your mom, and threw that criticism in there. And that didn't get me anywhere either. But so I feel like there's a fine line between like, how do we bring up complaints? How do we talk about those annoyances, those things that bug us before it turns into a criticism?
Right. So remember, a complaint is something that is bothering you. And again, we all have those. When it turns into a criticism, you compared him to his dad, like your dad's a better man than you because he fills up your mom's car with gas.
Right.
So, and that is emasculating for a man being compared to another man, unless he's winning. If your man is winning, you're comparing him because he's doing better, then of course he loves that.
Right.
So a criticism was when you start to attack their character.
Yeah.
Like, you're not good enough. You don't do it right. What's the matter with you? Something's wrong with you. Yeah. It's an attack on his character. Right. So we just have to be careful how we say things. And like that, you could use the words of, when you fill my car up with gas, I feel so cared about by you. What it provides for me is I feel like I have a partner. It's kind of like outside dirty work, getting the gas, nozzle. And I mean, I fill up my tank when I have to, of course.
Right.
But boy, I love it when
I
don't have to make that stop.
I just feel so safe knowing that I need to, drive 45 minutes tomorrow morning. When you come home and you've taken my car out, you've washed it, and you put gas in it, like that makes me feel
Yeah.
safe.
Yes,
I use those words.
absolutely.
And the appreciation for my gratitude, I don't know, was just so much softer than
Yes.
usually like begrudgingly like, yes, fine, I'll go take your car.
Yeah.
Because the words were different.
Yeah. And my husband, I even asked him, because I've never asked my husband to fill up my tank on a regular basis. He takes responsibility for that. It's so funny to me. Even if it gets down just a quarter of, or he never lets it get to a quarter of a tank, or even just barely to half a tank, he'll be like, oh, got to stop. And I'm like, let's not stop. I don't want to make this stop. I just hate going to the gas station. I don't want to take the time to do it.
Yeah.
And he'll go, no, because in the morning you're going somewhere. He'll get up at 10 o'clock at night and go fill up my tank if he knows I have a long drive the next day. And to be honest, I don't really pay attention to my gas tank because I'm kind of spoiled that way. He's kind of spoiled me where I don't even look at it.
I live life on the edge of that E-line.
Yeah.
Like, can we make it home? 5 more miles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So.
But when you get into the name calling and labeling people, that's when it becomes the criticism.
Right. You're attacking
like
their
you're just
character.
lazy. Yeah. You never, you don't take care of me good enough. Those kinds of things.
Yeah. Something that really irks Christian when we're talking to is using the words always and never.
Yes.
Like you never shut
and
the cabinet when you're done in the kitchen. You know,
Right.
it's like, never. I can think of all these 5 times in the last 5 days that I did it. You know?
Right. And we women use those words never and always to exaggerate what we want.
To drive home the point.
Yes.
Yeah. And it doesn't do well.
Yeah, because men are literal.
Yeah.
You never take me on a romantic date.
Wait a second.
I took you on a date 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for a woman, well,
Yes.
that was 3 months ago. So
Right,
you never.
right. It was a
But they're
lifetime.
literal. Yeah, it's like, well, I've taken you on a date. We went on a date, 2 months ago or whatever. So, and those words can also always and never, because is that the truth? Is that true?
Right.
If you really think about it, can I absolutely know that that's true, that he never?
Yeah.
And then when you really explore that way of thinking, you'll find out that he does at times. It's just not as much as you want it to be.
Yes.
Right.
In the same lifetime.
Yeah. So, and basically, again, the things we're talking about today, they're going to seep in and out of your relationship.
Right.
But if your relational immune system is strong and healthy, an occasional criticism isn't going to hinder the relationship. But if it becomes a regular, normal part of your communication style, constantly putting down and being critical, then that's the thing that eventually people are going to get tired of that.
Right.
Nobody wants to be criticized, right?
Right. Absolutely. Okay.
Okay.
So the second
one is contempt. And the definition of contempt is the feeling that your partner, your spouse, your significant other is beneath you in some way, that they're beneath your consideration.
Yeah.
Like you kind of just dismiss them, dismiss their opinions or how they're feeling, telling them they can't feel that way. Something's wrong with them if they feel that way. And contempt comes in the form of sarcasm, cynicism, eye rolling. It conveys, oh, brother, you're so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, be like eye rolling when your husband is talking or a man is talking, doing this is actually a form of emasculation for him.
Yeah.
Because it's saying like, oh, brother, like, I don't believe you.
Which means he wants to immediately go on the defensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or distance himself because no man wants their jewels cut off. Right. But sneering and hostile humor and mocking somebody, all of that would be a form of contempt. So the other day I'm walking through Costco and I hear there's a couple behind me and I hear the man say to the woman, no, you dummy. What are you, dumb?
Yeah.
And it just caught my attention. I turned around, looked at them because I couldn't believe this big, tall man was talking that way to his wife. And I watched his wife's body language and she just put her head down and drooped her shoulders. And I thought, if he talks to her that way in public, what does he do at home?
Yeah.
And it was just such a disrespect. And I thought that is contempt at its finest. Calling his wife a dummy. Like, you're so stupid.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think, in my stage of life of having young children and having friends who have young children, that creeps in, especially in those mommy days and those hard mommy days.
Yeah.
And you're doing it all and you're feeding the babies and you're putting them down for nap and you're trying to keep them on schedule and you just, you see that creep in these
Yeah.
in the mom friend groups, and the husband comes in and tries to help or offer a suggestion, and it's just like, "Ugh, never mind, I've got it. I'll take it. I roll.
I could do it myself.
Sneer. Yeah,
Mhm,
I'm the mom.
mhm.
I know it's best.
Right. Right.
Even though you're begging for help, but not even recognizing that. And it's like, just that like you said, that clout, that I'm better than you.
Yeah.
You can't do it
I
as
know
well as
best.
me anyway, so I might as well
Mhm.
do it myself.
Right. Right. And what does that do to your partner? Makes him feel like he's not good enough.
Yeah.
He can't measure up. So
And there's no win in it, so he might as well not engage
Yeah.
it anyway.
Yeah. Not
Or
going to
just
help you.
Yep.
Yeah.
what
It's
we
like,
discussed.
and that's a good point. We want their help,
right.
but then when they give it to us, they don't do it the right way.
Right.
And so we have to learn to be appreciative just that they're trying to help.
Mhm.
They're never going to do it the way a woman does it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We're different. They don't have to be just like us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Contempt doesn't happen overnight. Okay. It's usually fueled by simmering long-term negative thoughts about the differences that you have
Yeah.
and the way that you're thinking about them.
Right.
And I really feel like this is where, the Bible talks about taking every thought captive.
Yeah.
Because if we get into thinking negative thoughts about our partner, that can be a slippery slope.
Right.
Because we can build on it. Negative leads to negative, leads to more negative.
Yeah, it's a rabbit
right?
trail. Yeah.
And I think that take every thought captive and submit it to the Word of God. Like, does this thought, the way I'm thinking about them, is that a godly thought?
Yeah.
Is that from God or is that
Yeah.
from the enemy? Because we have to remember the enemy hates your marriage. He hates you and he hates that covenant between a man and a woman, and he will do anything he can to
Right.
destroy that.
Yeah.
So we need
Especially in
to get
words
our thinking right.
Yeah, that you put out in the air.
Yes, especially with words. Give you another example where I felt contempt from my husband to me. We were having a conversation the other day, and I made a suggestion, and it was something about finances, which my husband gets very protective about the finances.
Most men do.
And I made a suggestion, and he said, I will be the one making the decisions around here. And I immediately turned to him and I said, do not talk that way to me.
Yeah.
Because it felt like he was so above me and I was so beneath him.
Yeah.
And it made me feel like I don't have a voice. I can't have an opinion. I don't feel heard.
Yeah.
And when I brought it up to him later, he goes, what? What are you talking about? When did I do that? I go, oh, you did it. And he couldn't even remember it. He goes, well, I don't think I meant it that way. And I said, you probably didn't.
Yeah.
Because we believe that we are equals to each other. And I will always, because I am the woman and because Steve is the breadwinner, I will always defer to him when it comes to decisions on finances. He does have the right to veto. He has veto power if there's something I want or want to spend money on. And he says no. Because a man, his instinct to protect will always override his instinct to provide.
Right.
He wants me to have the things that I want, but he is in charge of the finances. He knows the bank account. He knows what we can spend, when we can spend it, and he's going to protect that because that's better for us in the long run. So we, as women, need to realize, you might think, well, he's not providing what I want. If he's supposed to be the provider, well, he's going to protect before he's going to provide. So just keep that in mind.
I feel like when contempt has come up in our relationship and it's gotten to that point, the words that are coming out of my mouth, and mine tends to go towards like sarcasm, or
me too.
I'll make sly little comments about like how much cereal you're eating and how much sugar you're eating in a day. And, and it's not really about that. It is something boiling more. I'm underneath the surface. I'm thankful and lucky that I have a husband who's like, okay, I've heard this out of your mouth several times now.
Right.
You keep kind of poking the bear.
Right.
But I know there's more going on than that. Like, what is boiling under the surface?
Exactly.
Because your words, it's not really about how many gummy bears I'm eating every night. There's more. There's
something
more
else
to it. What's angering you?
Right.
Where haven't you been heard? And we'll dig that root out, which I think that goes from, if I'm hearing you right, that's where we cross over from that contempt.
Right.
Or the criticism to contempt. It's like something more is boiling under there, but we keep kind of sliding.
Right. You got to get to the root of it.
Digging and those. For me, it's that cutting comment.
Yes, because that it can bleed into passive aggressiveness.
Yeah.
Where you're making a little sarcastic, like you really need that extra bowl of cereal or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's really, passive aggressiveness is like an inward hostility that you're trying to express and make it funny, but there's something, like you said, that goes a little deeper.
Because I don't want you to directly call me out for being mean or rude or whatever. So I'm not going to say it mean or rude, but there really still is something there.
Right. And that's a great conversation to have. And why does it bother you that, and I'm using an extra bowl of cereal, could be anything, and why does that bother you? Yeah. Like, you're not responsible for my weight, for my health. I'm responsible for my weight, my health, and it's really not any of your business. So why are you even commenting on that? And I mean, I used to be that way with my husband. He had gained some weight at one point, and I would see him just, it was a very stressful season. Yeah. And I know he was kind of medicating with food. And, we all have our ways of medicating when we're under stress. And I remember at one point thinking, what he eats and how he eats is none of my business. Yeah. And I can't be on him picking at him because that is going to get old very quick. And I remember sometimes just kind of having to turn my head when I would watch him order or add extra whatever dressing. And I remember thinking, you know what? I love him. And it's not my business. And he has to be responsible for his own health. Yeah. And I'm not his mother. I'm not his doctor. I'm not his counselor. Yeah. I'm his wife. And I'm going to just accept who he is.
Right. And this probably bleeds into the next one too, but like, we're really good at showing the mirror, this is, you're not your best self right now. And here's the reasons why you're not your best self right now. Right. And here's how you could be your best self.
And sometimes it's because we don't feel like we're our best self. So we start projecting onto our partner and saying things that we really mean toward us. Because when we have a judgment about somebody, it's almost like you are pointing a finger at them. But these three fingers are pointing back at me. It's like I'm judging you because there's something in me that I see in you that I don't like in me.
Yeah.
So the next one, so if we have that constant criticism and then it turns into contempt, if that keeps playing out in the relationship, it will turn into defensiveness. And this is when someone feels like they're being attacked. If somebody is defensive, the way they're interpreting what the other person is saying is that you are attacking me. So, and really defensiveness it's not a good form of communication, because when you're defensive, you're saying to the other person, no, it's not me, it's you. Yeah. You're the problem, and you're not taking any responsibility for what it is they're trying to point out. Yeah. And I think defensiveness comes from pride. The truly humble person doesn't ever have to defend themselves. It's like, okay, agree quickly with your adversary. Yeah. So the Bible says in Matthew, agree quickly with your adversary. Right. Because guess what? They got nowhere to go. Yeah. If you say to me, I don't like you're being really loud and it's obnoxious. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So this has happened to us when it comes to my cooking.
Your cooking? Okay.
I don't cook very often at all because I was criticized very early on how I cooked.
Yeah.
And, but a year or two ago, Christian said, like, don't you just want to get better? Don't you want to learn to cook better? Like, don't you want to like watch some YouTube videos or try or like not stay where you're at? I'm like, no, my brain is full. It might get criticized anyway. So I was very defensive about it.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was then the next time when I did want to cook something or I had a recipe or it was a night when he was working late, so I needed to have dinner ready, the pride of like, no, I said I wasn't going to get better. I was defensive about that. I am staying who I am.
I'm going to stand my ground.
I'm going to stand my ground.
I'm going to be a bad cook, so there.
Yeah, so maybe like, fine, I'm not cooking dinner,
Yeah, I'll show you.
Yeah, or just,
right.
That defensive, not wanting.
Yeah.
That pride. I had to like swallow my pride to then put something out on the table the next time.
Right.
For me, that's vulnerable because
I
don't cook as well as he does.
And, not everybody likes to cook. And that's okay. You can say, it's just not my thing. Yeah. I have other gifts. And cooking isn't one of them. And that's okay. Yeah. And I've noticed with you and Christian has become quite the cook.
Oh, yeah.
And he enjoys it. Yes. He likes it. Yeah. So he can't put that on you because he likes it. Then there's something wrong with you. You have other gifts that he doesn't have.
There's so much, when we do lay down that defensiveness and are able to get to the root and what we really care about and our values. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in marriage when it comes up. But when you are able to lay down that defensiveness, you can work it out. Yeah. And, like sometimes I feel a little I don't know, embarrassed, or I hate to like tell a bunch of girlfriends, like, my husband does the laundry and he cooks, and I stay at home, like I've got it really good when it comes to taking responsibility in our home. But we just got to that point, like he desires the laundry to be folded or done a certain way. Mm-hmm. And so he just takes responsibility for it. Right. Of course, when he's got busy weeks and he's traveling and all that, I'll jump in and do it. Yes. And, and the girls are now at the age where they can fold their own laundry. But instead of just this constant at each other, or I like the kitchen cleaned a certain way, I like the bathrooms cleaned a certain way. And yes, it gets to that point in the week where I'm like, oh my gosh, the house needs to be cleaned, but I have to take responsibility too. Like if I want it done a certain way, I can't make everybody live up to the way that I want it done and my expectations. The girls can do it the best they can in their chores, but I've just got to take responsibility and do it. Right. Instead of just continually holding it against each other. Yeah.
Because that takes a lot of energy to be mad about it and to constantly be on someone trying to get them to do it the way you want it done. So use that energy to just do it yourself. Yeah. And then there's no arguing, there's no complaining. And some people might say, well, that's not fair because then I have to do everything myself. If it's something that is that important to you, you do it and watch the people around you. Because when they start seeing how you're not on them, you're not nagging and griping, you're just doing it. It's amazing how people will start to take up the slack and try to do it because they do want to please you. And they'll start picking up or cleaning the way that you do. But don't expect it. Yeah. But if they do it, again, like we talked about the other day, everything someone does that you like and you appreciate is a gift. Yeah. And appreciate it and take it as a gift. Yep. Be thankful.
Not obligatory.
Gratitude goes a long way.
Okay, so, but I'm defensive about whatever. Yeah. What does that turn into?
Yeah. So just if you're criticizing, you have contempt, thinking you're above, you're superior to your mate, and you are constantly being defensive where you can't even have a conversation because the person is so defensive, they're not going to receive what you have to say anyway. That will stop the communication. That's not a good thing. Or if all those three things are happening, eventually it's going to turn into the fourth thing to do to ruin your relationship. That's called stonewalling. And that is where, in a normal conversation, you look at each other, give each other eye contact. You'll say, okay, I get that. I understand. Stonewalling is you won't look at them. And eventually you just turn away. And they can be talking. And you're just like this. It's like, so you feel like you're talking to a brick wall. They're not listening, which is so aggravating for a woman because now she feels like I'm not being heard, I'm not being seen, and that brings the worst out of women. And so if it gets to that point, I think the research shows that I think it's something like 94% of marriages, if they can't catch it at that point, it's just going to chip away at your marriage. And there might not be any coming back. So the goal is to not let it get to that point. Let it get to the stonewalling.
I've had somebody or a couple people in my life who, because of the passive aggressive comments or the eye roll, those first three stages, and they weren't romantic relationships necessarily, but I found myself doing that. It's like, I'll just kind of be busy and stay busy or be with the kids and purposefully ignore the comments. Yeah. Just because it was a defensive, like I felt like I had to cover myself. Right. Because I was so sick and tired of like the passive aggressive comments. Right. Or the criticisms or how I took it as criticism. But I definitely see how that stonewalling comes in where it's just like, if I just ignore them and I'm too busy. Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you.
Exactly.
But you're purposefully not hearing them.
Right. And that is a form of passive aggressiveness too, is I hear you, but what was that? Nope, couldn't hear you. Nope, didn't hear that. Yeah. So some of the antidotes or the solutions to the problem is one of them is knowing each other, really knowing each other. And if you are a couple that is dating and you're not married yet, and you don't have an interest in really getting to know your partner even better, and you're not asking questions about, their history and why they feel the way they feel and why that particular thing is a deal breaker for them, and just, their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. If you're not wanting to get to know that person, if you're kind of bored with them, stop dating that is not the person for you. You're not compatible with that person. Because when you're getting to know somebody and you're learning about them, it should be exciting. That's the fun part of a relationship. And even after marriage, I know once my husband and I don't know if we were dating or married. It was in the very, very beginning of our relationship. And we'd be going on a drive somewhere and we'd ask each other, so if there was anything about me you could change, what would it be? And we'd be thinking about it. And of course, when you're in that stage of that euphoric state of mind of falling in love, it's like, you're perfect. There's nothing. And then 3 months down the road, you start seeing the things that are imperfect, right? But we would just be really honest with each other and try to really understand each other. And I think when you know, knowledge is strength. So don't ever stop getting to know your partner. I mean, because we're always evolving, we're growing, we're changing, and you want to be able to have that flow of communication where you feel understood.
Right.
And, you know, probably the greatest gift we could give our partner is the gift of feeling understood.
So I feel like, you know, when you're in that intimate relationship, that marriage relationship, things do come up where you're like, oh, that's a value to me. It might not be a value to you. And we did not realize that. Are there... You know, are there certain questions, like, is there a book, Daniele, of dating? These are all the questions you need to answer before you get married, because this and this and this you don't realize is going to pop up.
Right. I definitely think, you know, and this is a lot of times what premarital counseling will help you do. And there are books. There absolutely are books about that. But you need to discuss things like, what are your non-negotiables? Yeah. What are your deal breakers? Like,
are you a city boy or a country boy?
Right. Like, what do you see? What do you want for your future? You got to make sure you're on the same page. Kids, you know, we want the same things, or because people connect at values. So what is a value to me? What is a value to you? And can I get on board with that value if it's not already? But things like, you know, family is going to be really important. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. Are you okay with that? I know one couple where the man said, oh yeah, that's fine. You can be a stay-at-home mom. I'll be the provider. And then they got married, and then the husband changed his mind and decided he wasn't making what he thought he was going to make, and he wanted her to go to work. And she said, do you remember we discussed this before we got married? And I am not going to put my kids on daycare. I am not going to let somebody else raise them. I'm going to raise my children. And I'll try to do work on the side, but my kids are my first priority. And he had to say, because he committed to that. He had to say, okay, you're right. That we did discuss that. I agreed to it. And you've got to keep your commitments.
But you can easily see where that starts to snowball. You know, if he changed that expectation of what was previously agreed on, you know, it starts as those little criticisms. Like, you're not doing enough around the house, or you're not, you know, I'm the one providing all the time, and then snowballing into the contempt. And I mean, that just, it can quickly take off. So if we don't pay attention to these 4 ways that can seep in and really work on the immunity of our relationship. So before we wrap up, just a couple tools, a couple tips to really just make sure we're working on the immunity of our relationship, healthy relationship. So when these red and yellow flags pop up, we're like, all right, we're not going to snowball this. We're not going to get to the stonewalling.
Catch it before it gets to that point of stonewalling. And you have to go back and remember why you fell in love to begin with. You know, talk about, reminisce what kinds of things you fell in love with him or her about. And because if you can bring up fond memories of your history, there's also research shows that your marriage is salvageable if it's going down the wrong path. And I like to ask young couples, like, so how did you meet? What was it about him that set him aside from all the other guys you dated or all the other girls you dated? What was special? And when you can see it in their eyes when they start reminiscing, they get the smile. Well, he used to do this and he did that, or she was this or that. And then also always speaking fondly of one another and speaking out things of admiration and appreciation and fondness. What are the things that that you're fond of in your partner, and talking about that. And if it's hard for you to talk verbally, write it down, put it in an email, put it in a card, send a text. For some people, it's easier for them to express themselves through writing.
To either text or leave a little card or a little sticky note on his computer. For me, sometimes getting the words out is just a little bit more difficult. But having it written down.
Right. And finding those times that are playful times, fun times, not everything is work oriented or family or children, but where you're just having fun with each other. Find those little things you can do. Whether it's playing pickleball or going to the gym together or meeting for coffee, whatever.
Yeah.
Just
and it's going to look different at every stage of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I feel like every single thing we talk about comes down to communication. Communication,
getting to know each other,
clarifying, because it doesn't stay the same.
Right.
We grow and we
change.
We change and we change as individuals, but we change together as well. And so just continuing to negotiate those seasons and have those open conversations.
Very good. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for today.
Absolutely.
Please subscribe. And if you enjoyed today's episode, share it with somebody. Make sure you like us and hit the notification bell so you know when a new episode is coming out. It helps us if you leave a comment. If you have any questions, we'd love to see them and help answer them. And make sure you check out Daniele on Facebook and Instagram.